I have some words right here. This one says sink and this one says float. And I'm going to fill these glasses up with water and I'm going to ask you some questions. What do you think can sink and what do you think can float? I'm going to pour this in there right now. Hold on a second, just so I can get a sip of water here. Make sure it's really water, right, Anna? I told her that if I take a drink, it is really water. Okay, we're going to leave some room here. I don't want it to overflow because we want to make sure that it doesn't spill out, right? Okay, let's see. We want to make sure that it's both even. All right. How many of you think that you know if I hold these items up that you're going to be able to guess which can sink and which can float? You think you're ready? Okay, so the first thing I have is a cork. Do you think it's going to sink or do you think it's going to float? How many of you said float? Okay, float. Let's see, we're going to put it on the float side. You are right, it did float. Let's take that out to make more room. My next thing I have here is a rock. It's going to sink. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? It did sink. You heard it hit all the way down to the bottom. Rocks are heavy, even a little one, right? Okay, I have a cross here. This can go either way. What do you think it's going to do? Float? Raise your hand if you think it's going to float. You think it's going to float? Let's see if it floats. You are right, it did float. This symbolizes Jesus also, because we know what he did for us, right, on that cross. So remember, he floated up to the top. I have the next thing here. I have a fish. Of course, fish swim. Do you think it's going to sink or float? Sink? You think this is going to sink? Oh, it sunk all the way down. It hit the bottom. Okay, I have a couple more here. I have a candy kiss. Sink? It did sink. What about this candy right here? It says Jesus lives. You think it's going to float? How many of you think it's going to sink like the Hershey's Kiss did? You think it's going to sink? Oh, I love the look on your face. You're not too sure, are you? Are you getting nervous? You think this one's going to float or sink? Float? You are right, it did float. All right, I have a nail here, also symbolizing what Jesus did for us on Good Friday, and it sunk right to the bottom. Oh, wait a minute, I have one more thing in here. I have an egg. On one side, it says Peter with a smiley face, and on the other side, it has Peter's name with a sad face. And that reminds me of the Bible story. One day, Jesus was out, and he was very busy healing people, and he was very tired. He came late at night, and he told everybody, all of his disciples, to get in the boat and go out to the lake, and I'll see you later. And that's what Jesus did. And he went out to pray. And Jesus came back, and it was in the middle of a storm, and he walked across that water, and the disciples saw him, and they were so afraid, they thought it was a ghost. And Peter said he was afraid, and Jesus said, do not be afraid. And Peter said, Lord, if it's you, order me to come out and walk on the water. What do you think Peter did? Did he walk on the water? He was walking on the water. And then what happened? He took his eyes off of Jesus, and this is what happened. He went and took his eyes off of Jesus, and he started to sink to the bottom. And Jesus right away picked him up and said, what little faith you have. Peter took his eyes off of Jesus. He tried to save himself. Nobody can save themselves. Only Jesus can save. That's why he went to the cross for us. And I have my little sign here. It says the nails didn't hold Jesus to the cross. It was his love for all of us that held him there, because he loved us so much. And before you go away, guys, I want to remind you to see Miss Julie. And I promise you, this chocolate here will not sink. There you go.
Well, thank you, Miss Debbie.
Thank you for joining me this morning, guys.